We're going to basically start a beginner type level. It's going to be some very basic steel guitar information. One of the reasons we really want to start out with is some beginning concepts about the steel guitar, maybe take this pretty slowly. I know a lot of you are coming over with some basic knowledge about E9 and maybe C6 and have already been playing steel guitar for a while, but you're really looking at these tuning concepts of mine, and I know a good number of folks that are already beginning to set up guitars like mine is, and so we really want to kind of cover some basics there so you can kind of learn where to find certain things that you may already be accustomed to playing. And then of course we'll advance as we go along and talk more about chord theory, speed picking theory, and then of course we'll get into some comparative studies with the C6 and where you can find a lot of those kind of information, those kind of things. Now one of the things I want to do is just kind of break down for this whole beginner series that we're going to kind of do on my 12-string E6-9 tuning setup. We're only going to use certain parts of the guitar. We're going to use basically the ABC pedals, and I'm going to talk about those in a minute, about how they're arranged. Then we're going to use what we would call the lowering the E's and the raising of the E's. And I think most of you that are involved with steel guitar already will understand that concept. And then we have two other knee levers on the right leg that will come in play also with this beginner series. So basically we'll keep this limited to 3 pedals and 4 knee levers that we're going to basically use just for the beginner type series here. Now one of the things I'd just like to kind of already point out to you, just the sound of the tuning itself in an open position. So just as you kind of rig across that probably, if you went to a steel guitar shop or a steel guitar show, and 99% of the guitars that you're going to just rake your hands across are not going to sound like that at all. It may be a little bit more as you rake across the top few strings. There's mine. And a lot of the guitars you'll hear will be like this. And so we're going to get into covering a little bit about that today, actually, of how the top few notes are tuned, because I think you'll find some pretty fresh material there and how I approach it. That I think that's one of the major differences in my tuning setup and concept. Let's just look right now at the pedal arrangement so we can kind of get that out of the way of exactly what we're using. We'll start out with the A and B pedals. For those of you that have quite a bit of knowledge, I basically use the Jimmy Day type setup. I've always found that it's easier to move my foot in that kind of motion. Many of you know what that's all about. It's basically he elected to put his C pedal over basically in position 1, and then of course you would have your B pedal then in the same position, and then he had his A pedal kind of in his 3rd position. So basically it was a C B A kind of arrangement. Just basically flipped the A and the C pedals. That's the way I see it. And then as far as what I do, it's actually B A C. So I flipped B and A, but then we put the C pedal with the A pedal. So even in the Jimmy Day and the Buddy Emmons setup, the B and the A, or the C and the B rather, the C and the B always still came together. But under my tuning here, you'll notice that my C pedal is along with really what many people would term as the B pedal. So that all said, with my number 2 pedal, that is essentially what most people would think of as their B pedal. It happens to be in position number 2, which is pretty convenient, but my first pedal does something completely different. The next pedal we're going to use pulls the 5th string, the B's to the C sharp, and of course we also pull that C sharp note that I'm using into a D note at that point. Don't want to get too confusing here, but just basically you've got your 2nd pedal that we're going to be using and we'll call that just pedal number 2. And then we rock on to our A pedal, which, or I'm sorry, it would really be the, yeah, well, it's the A pedal if you look at it from the Emmons standpoint, rocking onto that, those B's onto the C sharp notes. But I just think of that as pedal number 3. But I know for some of you, you want to kind of establish that in your mind, how that works. And then, of course, along with that third pedal, the fourth pedal becomes more of what we would term as a C pedal. And that's the fourth pedal. That raises also the E note, which is pretty common with that setup in the E9 tuning. Okay, so that's the 3 pedals that we're going to be using for now in this whole series. So pedal number 2, pedal number 3, and pedal number 4 basically is a B, A, C type arrangement. Now, as you take your copedent there, and you can find those on the Steel Guitar Forum, or you can email me, and I'll certainly send you a copedent if you don't already have one. And so for the sake of this, we're going to be discussing pedal numbers 2, 3, and 4. Now, let's look at the knee levers that we're going to be using. We're going to look at the left knee left, which is basically how people would term as lowering the E notes. And so all the E's on the guitar, which is the 3rd string, the 8th string, and the 11th string, are all lowered a half a step with the left knee left. And then, of course, opposite of that, with left knee right, we are raising the E notes up to F. So this is very basic type moves as far as compared to the E9 standard setup. Okay, and we'll go over the grippings here in just a minute, but I want to cover all the pedals that we're going to be using. We're also going to go ahead and use the right knee levers as well, the right knee left and the right knee right, because there's some critical things there that you just simply have to do in order just to basically even cover all that's on the E9 setup. Starting with the right knee left is going to pull this C sharp note, which I have the C sharp note is in the string number 4, and that is in between the E and the B. For those of you that have been playing an E9 setup, you're used to your 3, 4, and 5 strings being a grip. That's going to change because now we have the 6th note, the C sharp. It's kind of stuck right in between the E and the B, which really opens up a lot of great music for us. And a lot of people, they listen to my speed picking and fast type songs, but even in my slow material, that string is just used so much, because we not only have it C sharp in the open tuning, but then we also pull it with the pedal number 3 to a D. So we have C sharp, D, and then of course with the right knee left that I'm talking about, that becomes an E flat at that point. So that's how, if I push over my right, engage my right knee left, and then I play strings 2, 4, 1, 3. That's essentially how it sounds when you rip across the top 4 strings open in the E9 standard. But for me, it's engage the right knee left so I can get that E flat on the 4th string, and then you got 2, 4, 1, 3. So that already opens up some possibilities for you to just kind of comprehend how my first 5 notes sound. And of course I've got the E flat engaged there. To me it makes it even more musical, just doing those 5 strings with the right knee left and the E flat note engaged. So, one more knee lever that we're going to kind of use in this series is going to be the right knee right. The right knee right does a couple of different things, but the main one that we're going to be needing it for is pulling the 8th string, which is an E. We're going to pull that down a whole step to a D. and almost any open tuning that you see on the E9 guitars, there's always a D note, a flat 7, so we'll definitely want to use this. And then also, a pretty common thing these days is to, on the top 2 strings of an E9 tuning, you hear a lever that makes this kind of sound. So basically what I do on my right knee left is I take my F sharp note, which is my string 2, and I pull that up a whole step from F sharp to G sharp. So we'll probably be using that some here to give you some examples to work with. So just kind of to recap a little bit, we're going to be using 3 pedals. On the co-pedant, it's pedal number 1, or pedal number 2, 3, and 4, which, as we've kind of said, for those of you that have followed along or been playing guitar, that's a B, A, C type arrangement. 4 knee levers that we're going to use: left knee left, lowering E's; left knee right, raising of E's; and then the right knee left is going to engage our 4th string to get our E flat note, and then of course the right knee right does 2 different things that we just discussed. Let's just talk about the strings and the open tuning just a bit. And of course we call this an E69 because that's what we have. And so we have 12 strings, and most people, when they first just kind of sit down to it, they think, oh, you got 12 strings, so you have 2 extra strings. Well, that's one way of looking at it, but in reality, if you want to just compare it to the E9 standard alone, we actually have 3 extra strings. And so we can talk a little bit about that. But if you compare it then to the C6 side as well, whether you look at it from an Emmons perspective or from Jimmy Day's real standard C6 type tuning, we encompass both of those, and then a string even in addition to each one of them. So it's very, very interesting how that works out with an E bass tuning. But for the sake of this beginner's lesson, we're going to just simply talk about things from an E perspective and keep it as simple as we can. I did want to give you one little exercise that I've worked on since I was just a kid, and I remember it's one of the first things. I probably have spent countless hours doing this. It's really how I learned how to shape my hands, and I know a lot of people are kind of fascinated with the way I do my picks, which, as you can see, they're just kind of straight up and down. So that's why you see my hand is in this kind of motion. And of course, so that's when I'm picking, you can barely see my fingers move, and it's because most of the movement is coming from back here. But for the sake of the beginner, I really want you to just begin to be able to run the strings like this. Okay? So it's just 3 at a time. So that's thumb, index, and middle finger. And what I really think this serves a couple of different things. One, it gets you kind of aware of what's going on this neck, but it's also just a really, really great exercise to learn. And once you get that real clean, it really sounds cool. And I actually use it in a lot of my improvisation and things just for fun. It really works pretty cool. So I work at it, and I just make sure I've run sometimes just every fret, just running that as quick as I can, or sometimes slow and methodical. But so you may, just have to. And then just do that over and over, and it's going to kind of make you just cringe your teeth at times, because it's going to be kind of difficult to continue getting over those strings. But that will really be something that I think will help you, and that's a really neat thing about the tuning, just beginning to get acquainted with the strings themselves. So that's something I want you to work on between now and the time you go to the next series.